Put the expectation of Kenyans and the treasury numbers into perspective. I'm now joined by David Mola of Saturn Investment. Thank you very much indeed, David, for joining us. Now, 3.074 trillion shillings is quite a huge figure. It is a huge budget, the biggest in the country's history from the face of it. What is it that necessitated this particular figure or this budget? And is it not an amount too big for the country?
For me, the amount is quite big for the country or for the economy to support. But we do have an option because we invested heavily in the infrastructure sector. So we need to inject more into production now. That aligns to the Big Four agenda. So definitely we expect a higher amount of the budget in terms of expenditure, which now triggering to 3-point-something trillion budget. Yes.
And it is a trend that we've noticed for the many years. The budget has always been on an upward trajectory. Does it mean that our spending is increasing, or is it that the appetite actually to just raise this budget amount from the Treasurer's point of view is something that is perhaps prompting this trend?
The trend basically is determined by the stage of economic development where we are as a country. These are preconditions for takeoff stage. So basically we expect a lot of injection and a lot of expenditure, though we have some loopholes in terms of ensuring optimal utilization of whatever had been set out by the government for expenditure, which now also increases our expenditure because we cannot draw how much we get to lose through the loopholes that are there in the system. Yes.
And how Kenyans are actually complaining. Yesterday we spoke to some of them. They indicate this amount is too huge. They don't think it's going to be a walk in the park, especially for them because they're taxpayers. How do you see CS Rotich balancing out this particular endeavor together with other needs within the economy?
The government have an option of doing public and private partnership so that we leverage amount that we get from the public. So with the private-public venture or organizations, then we might reduce the amount that we get from the public and also increasing the tax base, because there are debates on whether we have to move from the exempted to zero rated, or from the zero rated to exempted, which I know will have some impact on the public.
Yeah, yes. And Kenyans feel like they're being overburdened. Already the cost of living is too high. They are being taxed, and we have other tax proposals, most of which will mean that the cost of living is going to be even higher for a majority of them. Is that the only option that Rotich had, like tax even more some Kenyans? Wasn't there any other way on how the budget could have been actually financed without necessarily proposing those tax aspects?
I think the CS is limited in terms of the avenues that he can collect revenues from. Because when you talk about financing using public debt, we already at the limits. We're already seeing signals from the IMF and even the public that we are going too much into borrowing. So the only option now that remains is coming domestically, and we funding through ordinary revenues, because even the appropriation in aid cannot adequately finance what we expect. So we limited in terms of option that we have, and the primary option that the government now sets in is tax, definitely. Yes.
And we know quite a huge portion of this budget actually goes towards actually financing recurrent expenditure. How difficult is it for the government to tame expenditure, especially internally when we talk matters recurrent?
I think we need to look it in a different fold, not about taming recurrent expenditure, because that's the setup of our budget, and that's the setup of our economy. So what we need to do is inject more into production, creating employment, creating new jobs, the Big Four agendas of manufacturing, so that we enhance the amount available or the disposable income for the public, so that we reduce a lot of the current expenditure that doesn't generate anything back into the government. Yes.
And speaking of actually producing more, we see that infrastructure took the lion's share when it comes to these expected budget. Does it mean that this is the government's commitment towards actualizing and sustainably implementing the Big Four agenda?
For a country basically to grow economically, it must fix its infrastructural problems, and that's what we are doing as a country. Even though it has been really a big challenge based on, because it has even affected our foreign exchange balances. So what basically we expect is a lot of investment in infrastructure will trigger development, because even production and even injecting money into agriculture, when we produce this output, we need our roads to transport them. We need regional balance or regional trade. We need to use our railway, to use our infrastructure. So infrastructure has a major multiplier effect in the economy. So it's the first primary source of growth in an economy.
But we, of course, have to look beyond infrastructure. True. If at all, Kenyans are actually to benefit even from this economic growth that is foreseen through this kind of expenditure plan.
But basically, when we inject into infrastructure, we first sort out our infrastructural problems. Then we move into agriculture or maybe the production sector, because we cannot start with the production sector, then we have infrastructural problems. That will be reverse economics, and it wouldn't work. So we have an option as a country first to work with or teach what he's saying, so that once we saw the infrastructure, then basically going into production will enhance even the achievement or realization of the big four.